The following program is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not to be considered legal advice. Fraudsters Radio was created to expose the many scams and frauds that have so infected society today. Scammers, fraudsters, and rip-off artists abound, whether it's scamming homeowners with bogus foreclosure relief services, dating fraud, incompetent lawyers, or consumer rip-offs. It's high time the public has a voice. If you work in a profession that deals with fraud, or if you believe you were or are a victim of fraud, you now have a radio listening public that wants to hear from you. Please feel free to message us through our Fraudsters Radio Facebook page, and we may have you on the show as a guest. If you'd like to call in for today's show, the number is 646-668-8512.
And welcome to Fraudsters Radio. I'm Lori Z, nationally syndicated radio host and consumer advocate, along with my co-host, Storm Bradford, who's a litigation consultant for mortgage fraud examiners. And Storm, why do we do this show, Storm?
Well, we started the show to educate the public about all the scams, the frauds, and the scammers perpetrating them.
And so, today we're going to be talking a little bit more about foreclosure rescue schemes and mortgage fraud. And a little later in the show, consumer advocate Bob Hurt will be joining us. And so I've known you for a long time. I still am. I guess I could say I'm still shocked to see how many scams. It never ends. If anything, it seems to be getting worse. So, Storm, I'm actually looking on the FBI's website, and I'm going to just read you a few of the dozens of titles of scams. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Real estate broker sentenced to prison for role in defrauding banks in $3.5 million shotgun loan scheme. Final defendant sentenced in foreclosure rescue scheme. These are all different people. Hialeah man pleads guilty in $8 million laundering scheme involving proceeds of mortgage fraud and tax refund fraud. Vallejo defendant pleads guilty in multi-million-dollar mortgage and foreclosure rescue fraud scheme. These are all from this year, by the way. Vero Beach attorney, property developer, and buyer sentenced to prison for conspiracy and making false statements to a federally insured institution. Nassau County, New York man sentenced to 57 months in prison for defrauding multiple residential mortgage holders. Just give you a few more here. Member of Nevada city-based conspiracy sentenced to 10 years in prison for multi-million-dollar bank and title fraud scheme. Loan officer sentenced for his role in mortgage fraud conspiracy. Real estate investor pleads guilty to bid rigging at online auctions. And Orange County man sentenced to 108 months in federal prison in a $21 million builder bailout fraud scheme. Now, there are so many from this year. It's mind-boggling that people still continue to do this. And why do you think they do this? Is it they're so greedy that they think their way is right and they don't have attorneys and they don't check it out? Or, what is the motivation for people to do this? Because there are dozens of these people going to jail for doing these types of scams.
Well, some of these people have an altruistic reason for doing what they do. They're just wrong. And being wrong is what hurts homeowners. Being wrong is what hurts the public. But the others, and let me talk a little bit more about that for a second. A lot of these scammers that I know altruistically were thinking they were helping the public. When I proved to them by using court cases where all the courts around the country have held the same, that their arguments were bogus and in a lot of cases nonsensical, I told them, if you stop now, then I can let you off the hook. But if you continue afterwards, that's what makes you a scammer. So, and the other ones are just in it for the money. So any way you slice it, it still hurts the public, and it hurts, the public at large, and the scammers that are ripping off these homeowners and the stall attorneys, that's one group that's being harmed as well.
Right. But I sit here and I go, what makes all of these people, there are dozens of them, what makes them think they're going to be the one person to get away with it when, it's not even, why would you even try to do something like this? Well, you want the money, but isn't the risk of fraud, of being put in a federal prison scary? I guess they're not scared.
Well, here's the reason. And it's not dozens. It's thousands of people doing it. And the law enforcement doesn't have the resources to stay on top of this. They just catch the low-hanging fruit. But there's literally thousands of them. And they catch them as they can. And you're just reading off the FBI website of people that have been convicted. There's literally hundreds of them being prosecuted by the state courts and federal courts as well that haven't come to fruition yet. But slowly but surely, they're getting them. Slowly but surely, the bar associations are disbarring, sanctioning, and suspending these stall attorneys as well. But it takes time because they don't have the manpower to do it. That's the problem.
All right. Now, I know in the past, you've actually helped get some companies shut down. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Well, what I did is again, once someone would come to us and report that they had been scammed by somebody, I'd get the information, I'd call the company, and I'd tell them, I'd explain to them, I'd say, look, every court in the country says this is bogus, every court in the country says it's nonsense, because it is. And if you continue to do this, we're going to turn you in. And the people that you already ripped off are going to turn you in. So we gave them a chance, but in a lot of cases they didn't take it.
It's a shame. I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but many years ago I had a client who had called me and had paid thousands of dollars to one of these foreclosure rescue scammers. It wasn't a law firm or anything like that. But I remember getting all the details and then, calling you about it, and then you checked into it, and I remember that you did help get them shut down. What can somebody do if they suspect that they're being scammed when it comes to a foreclosure rescue scheme? What do they do? Who do they call?
Well, here's their problem. A lot of these homeowners don't think they're being scammed because the scammer tells them, look, if you were to lose your case, it's because the judges are in the bank's pocket. So what happens after they lose, the scammer says, I told you so, and now who's the homeowner upset with? Homeowner's not upset with the scammer. The homeowner says, oh, it's the judicial system. It's the judges who are the scammers. That's why you don't see more and more and more of these people coming after these scammers. Now, when people come to us, we analyze their transactions. We show them the problems, the real problems with their mortgage, what happened in their mortgage. And then we tell them, look, go after these people and get your money back. And they do. They go after them in a lot of cases, and they do it. But regrettably, like I said, there's thousands of them. And the stall attorney's to boot. The stall attorney, after the homeowner loses their home, says, well, why are you upset? I kept you in your house for the last 3 or 4 years. Well, no, they didn't, because in the judicial state, it takes 3 to 4 years to wind its way through the court system anyway. So they didn't keep you in your house. It's
no, but that's what they said. But that's because they don't know what you. That's because they don't know what you know. They only know what the scammer is telling them, or what the lawyer is telling them. And so, I think when you hire an attorney to do something, it should be spelled out. If you're paying an attorney $1,000 a month retainer, what does that mean? If the attorney is not doing any actual work and now you've paid $12,000 for the year, and maybe the attorney filed one pleading or something like that, one set of documents. To me, that's a whole scam.
Here's where they get you, Lori. The honest attorneys, the honest ones, tell the homeowner that all we can do is stall. And the reason why they say that is because they don't know how to analyze a mortgage transaction. That's why.
Right.
The honest ones will tell you that. But where they're dishonest is in the retainer agreement, and we've seen many of these retainer agreements, and some of the prominent stall attorneys in Florida, just in the last couple of weeks we've seen them, where it's an ethics violation to stall a case. And
but the problem,
hold on, Laurie. What they put in their retainer agreement is you understand that the work that we're doing is not stalling your foreclosure. We're going to do so and so and so and so, but that's what's in the retainer agreement. That's what the homeowner signs. But in reality, they've told the homeowner that that's all they can do is stall.
Well, you've said before that constitutes malpractice, correct?
Well, it's more an ethics violation than anything. You can't purposely stall foreclosures.
Then why is it so difficult? I'm sure in other states, but especially in Florida, there are, I talk to hundreds of attorneys, probably between 100 and 200 attorneys, and none of them wanted to do any type of counterclaim or offensive action. They were basically all stall attorneys. They didn't want to litigate. They didn't want to go to court. And you and I both know attorneys that'll take $1,000 a month and get, 100 clients that way. They're making a killing every month, but they're not on the retainer. They're not necessarily doing the work because it's not billable hours.
Yeah, and Laurie, that's the answer, see, is because what they're doing is, and there's some attorneys that I know and you know that I've talked to. They said, Storm, there's no doubt that the only thing that works is attacking the contract, but we don't know how to do it. And I want to get paid. So if they're paying you to analyze the transaction and all they have to do is give the evidence to the bank and all that you provided for them, and give that evidence to the bank and give it to all of the state and federal agencies that you give them, they don't need me. So, and moreover, if they were to do counterclaims or cross-claims or affirmative defenses that were actually any good, they have to actually do work. Why, when you can charge somebody $3,500 up front and $1,000 a month for 3 or 4 years and maybe have 1 or 2 5 or 10 minute telephonic hearings, would you want to do anything else? That's
the moral and ethics issue. I mean, Storm, if somebody pays me to do something, I expect that they're paying me to do that thing, and I, spell it out in a contract, and I do it because that's how it is. But to have almost all of the attorneys do this type of thing to people who are in foreclosure, never telling them that they've actually won a case, just that they, really they've stalled, but they don't tell the client that. But when you take that retainer and you're not doing any work, I don't know, if I were an attorney and I'm not, I would sit here and go, I couldn't take $1,000 a month from 100 people and live with myself in good conscience.
Do you know why they do it? Because in a lot of cases, they make these stall arguments. In a lot of cases, they argued that the bank didn't have the note when they actually filed the complaint. The judge saw that. The judge says, hey, bank, sorry, the law says here in the state of Florida, for an example, and in many states the same thing as well, you didn't have the note in your possession when you filed the complaint, so I'm going to dismiss this case without prejudice. And if you want to foreclose on Mr. Jones, you need now to foreclose. And Now, what does the lawyer do? The lawyer comes back to the client and says, hey, I just won your case. Well, no, they didn't win the case. They stalled the case because before the judge's ink is even dry on his order, because the bank now has the note, they're down in the clerk's office refiling the lawsuit. And, okay, it's going to wind its way through the courthouse again until it gets back up front, and then you're done. So you ended up spending a whole lot of money. You paid your lawyer's fees, and there's 4 places in every contract where we as homeowners agree that we pay the bank's legal fees, that you end up not only losing your home, in a lot of cases there's a deficiency judgment, and now you got a judgment against you because the law firm sued you for their legal fees.
Mhm. I don't know. It just seems like I mean, I'm hoping our listeners listen to the show and spread the word about this, because I'm so concerned living in this state and seeing the amount of fraud and the fact that no one seems to do very little about it. And whether you have enough people or not, I don't know. I mean, why aren't there enough people? Why are people suckers that they fall for this type of thing?
Laurie, I know we have to go to break. But, you and I both, and a lot of others out there, are doing our damnedest to expose all these scammers that are hurting these homeowners. And what happens to us? We get attacked.
Right. So, because the better you are, right. Yep.
All right, you're going to take us to break?
Yep, let's go to a quick break. We'll be right back.
Have you received a notice of foreclosure on your property? Do you suspect that you're involved in an unfair or fraudulent loan agreement? Are you looking for a way to save your home? Would you like to cut through all the misinformation and find out what really works? Would you like to learn strategies that the so-called gurus aren't aware of? If you answered yes to any of those questions, a professional team at Mortgage Fraud Examiners can assist you and your attorney with all of these things and more. Contract breaches, errors, statutory regulatory violations, fraudulent appraisals, and other fraudulent conduct cause most mortgages to be legally problematic. In fact, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation found that nearly 2,000 financial institutions they assessed received citations for significant compliance violations. They also examined appraisals and found out that of the 259 appraisals reviewed for accuracy, only 7 fully complied with professional standards. Call us at 844-920-7200. That's 844-920-7200. Mortgage Fraud Examiners, 844-920-7200. Okay, we're back on AM 24/7. I always get this wrong. AM FM 24/7 radio. The call-in number is area code 646-668-8512, and we're have a special guest today, Bob Hurt. He's a consumer advocate down in Tampa, Florida. Bob, are you with us?
I am.
Bob,
hi, Bob.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the earlier part of the show, but I know you've experienced a lot of the scams and scammers out there. Can you give us some idea of what you know? And I know you have been attacked as well for exposing these scammers. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Well, I wrote an article about Richard Kahn, a former mortgage broker who had turned into a securitization auditor from South Florida. And he had gained quite a bit of fame as the hero of foreclosure defense, because according to him, his so-called securitization and chain of title audit could be used by people in foreclosure to defend against the foreclosure action, because the assertion was that the securitization itself there was something crooked about it that made the mortgage unenforceable, and that the musical chairs of the title as it changed hands from one investor to another investor, usually resulted in a lack of standing by the foreclosure plaintiff, meaning the wrong party was foreclosing and didn't really own the note and have the right. And even Neil Garfield has recently said in one of his articles that if a person has to be a holder in due course, which means he had to pay money for the note in order to enforce it. And so these collusion between these fools, these buffoons, leads borrowers astray into thinking that they can purchase a securitization audit or a chain of title audit and then learn what's necessary to be able to get their attorney to defend against the foreclosure. Well, it's complete poppycock, nonsense, balderdash, paltery, and bilge, okay? In other words, it's just totally untrue, because what these people do is they con the borrower into buying this fake audit, and the borrower ends up with an attorney who actually can't win anything with it. All they do is delay the inevitable loss of the property. The borrower ends up, if many a feckless borrower has called me on the phone and asked me for help after purchasing a chain of title audit that didn't do them any good, and they lost their efforts. And they're right on the verge of the threshold of losing their property to an auction. And there's nothing, the only thing that I can do for them is to recommend that they get their loan transaction examined by a competent professional, because anything other than that is nothing but a waste of time, because the court's effort is going to be to enforce that note and mortgage. And the way to enforce it, and the only way to enforce it, is to order the sale of the property in order to raise the money to pay off the debt. That's what foreclosure is all about. So if the borrower breached the note and he comes looking for a chain of title audit to bail him out, he's going to get nothing but a foreclosure final judgment against him, or in a non-judicial foreclosure state, then he's not even going to go to court. The trustee's going to order a sale of the property. The only solution to this terrible dilemma, and a solution that the con artists out there that sell chain of title audits won't tell the borrower, is the borrower has to find proof that he got injured somehow in the loan transaction, because only such injuries or unconscionability in the contract or fraud, only such a thing will cause a court to give pause and to say, wait a minute, what did you do to this borrower? You, what, lied about the value of the house? You lied about the terms of the loan, and then you hoodwinked the borrower into taking this house getting a loan for a lot more money than the house was even worth? Well, that's ridiculous. We're going to make the crooks in this transaction pay the borrower for his injuries. That's the only solution to this kind of problem. And of course, a chain of title audit doesn't do anything for that. And crooks like Neil Garfield, who's been disciplined by the Florida bar for his crooked behavior, they keep getting away with it because I guess borrowers don't have enough anger about being cheated by him as to go at him with sufficient bar complaints to get him disbarred. And Richard Kahn is still, what he did, instead of rebutting the accusations I made against him for being a crook and a con artist, what he did is he wrote some nonsense about me on his blog calling me a racist. Which, what does that have to do with the truth? even if I were a racist. What does that have to do with the fact that he is selling a worthless audit to people, claiming that he can be an expert witness? You know, a judge called that kind of stuff empty gimmickry. And that was with specific respect to an audit that he had provided, I believe. In any case, that's been my experience. What I do is I write commentaries about these guys and post them on my blog or write an article and post it. I've written articles like that in my own, put it on my website, bobhurt.com, but you can also see my most recent article about Mark Stopa, a scamming lawyer who got disbarred at mortgageattack.com. And also avail yourselves, listeners, of the website Living Lies the Truth, where you'll find an exposure of the scam lies that crooked lawyer like Neil Garfield tell borrowers, TILA rescission, just complete nonsense. So that just lets you in a little on my experiences and what I try to do about it. I try to expose them, and even somebody, look, I have never charged anybody a penny for any of the work that I've done since 2009, trying to expose crooks and help borrowers get relief and remedy in their foreclosure disasters. And somebody wrote a nasty thing about me at ripoffreports.com, even though I don't sell anything. How could I be ripping people off when I've never sold a single thing and taken any money from any person seeking help? I have.
Well, they didn't like what they didn't like what you wrote. They didn't like what you wrote, Bob. So I want to cut in before we have to do a commercial again. When you do that blog about Neil Garfield, you know, does he ever respond? Do you ever get any response from Neil Garfield's attorney, or no?
I actually indulged in an email interchange with Neil Garfield. He was polite and, you know, gracious, but told me that I had plagiarized his photo or taken his photo from someplace, and he didn't like the particular comments that I made. So I adjusted it a little bit to make him happy, but I still exposed him as being a crook, and exposed his frivolous legal theories. Now, here's a lawyer, a man who is an expert in the law, compared to me, who I'm just, you might call me a law student for purposes of this discussion. I'm not an attorney, but he's an expert in the law, and yet he's been telling people false information about TILA rescission, including totally misconstruing the Supreme Court's decision in the Jessenowski case, where the Supreme Court said that you don't have to sue somebody within 3 years in order to have a valid rescission. And he interpreted that, I'm talking about Neil Garfield, interpreted that as meaning that if you have a loan of any kind, whether you use the money to buy the house or you're just refinancing, that you can file a notice of rescission for any reason whatsoever. And he has since recanted, saying, well, no, if it's a purchase money loan, which according to the law, there is no right of rescission beyond 3 days for a purchase money loan. He recanted and said, well, yeah, that's an exception. But other than that, he still adheres to this nonsense about the Jessenowski opinion, saying that anybody can file a notice of rescission. And so what does he do? He uses this failing legal theory to sell his useless TILA rescission package for $3,000. I mean, borrowers that fall for this stuff because they think, well, he's a lawyer, he's Neil Garfield, he's famous, everybody knows his name. He couldn't be sending me down the river lying to me about things. Yeah, he does, blatantly.
Yeah.
And then when they call him to try to get their money back, won't answer the phone. The Florida bar disciplined him for that.
Yeah, and I want to continue on, Bob. We are going to go to a quick commercial break. If you have a question that you'd like to call in and ask, you can reach us at 646-668-8512. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
There is a very high likelihood your mortgage contains an extensive error. At Mortgage Fraud Examiners, we know just how costly a missed opportunity can be. For almost 40 years, we have consulted, retained, and referred to by attorneys, lawyers, trial practitioners throughout the nation. Put another way, we are the trusted source for litigation support. A foreclosure is basically an allegation the homeowner breached the contract by failing to make timely payments. The contract is clear. The borrower promised they would make timely payments, and if they didn't, the lender could take the property. The only way to overcome the homeowner's breach is to show the lender breached first. Identify errors that would void the contract. Identify regulatory violations. Identify appraisal fraud and other fraudulent contact. And the only way to find these wrongs is to thoroughly examine the whole mortgage transaction. This meticulous examination of your mortgage transaction and appraisal can identify legal defects that would make your mortgage unenforceable and entitle you to compensation or even free title to your property. Call us at 844-920-7200. Mortgage Fraud Examiners, that's 844-920-7200. 844-920-7200.
Welcome back. AM/FM 24/7 radio. We have our special guest, Bob Hurt, a consumer advocate in Tampa, Florida, who's been discussing these foreclosure rescue scammers. Bob, I know this. You know, I've had a litigation support company for almost 40 years. We have all of the different legal search engines that the public doesn't have or homeowners don't have as a rule. And we've never found a case ever that Richard Kahn or anyone else providing these chain of title audits, the homeowners ever won, ever. Matter of fact, there was one that just came down here the other day from another guy. His name's Bill Patallo, who lost his home making these ridiculous arguments, who works for Neil Garfield, supplies his chain of title audits, or at least used to, and the court came back. This case just came down the 27th of August, and the court said the majority of the complaint contains what appears to be the information from a William Patallo. And the result, the case was dismissed with prejudice. These poor homeowners, and what will happen, guaranteed, that Richard Kahn, this guy Patallo, and all these other scammers have already told these homeowners, because I've heard the homeowners have told us this. Bob, I know you have. I have literally talked to probably, I don't want to say tens of thousands, but well over 10,000 homeowners over the years, privately on the phone or in seminars. I know you've spoken to thousands. I know Laurie has, and we all hear the same story, that they're in the process of losing their home or already lost their home because they bought one of these scam audits. And again, you get attacked, I get attacked, Laurie gets attacked. That's why we started this radio show. That, hey, if any of these scammers want to come on, come on. Come on, tell your lies, tell your nonsense so millions of people can hear it.
Well, let me help out. Let me help out with this for a minute, okay? What's that phone number to call Mortgage Fraud Examiners?
What's
that phone number? Yeah, your 800 or 8 whatever number. What is that?
To be honest with you, I got to look on the website myself. It's
So in other words, a person can go to the website and look at mortgage fraud examiners and see the phone number to call for help, right?
Right.
Well, let me tell you, if they don't call that number, here's the number they should call. 888-536-18. That's Allied Van Lines. That's who they're going to need when they lose their house. If you got a choice out there, borrowers, if you have breached your note, you haven't made mortgage payments for months or years, and you're facing foreclosure, if you don't attack the validity of the loan transaction by getting your mortgage examined comprehensively by a professional like mortgage fraud examiners, you're going to lose your house. And when you lose it, if you have enough money to pay the moving fee, you should call Allied Van Line because they do a crack-up good job. 888-536-1830. Now, I'm giving you that information with a little tongue-in-cheek because I know it feels disastrous, and you don't need somebody making a humorous crack like this about your disastrous situation. But if you fall for the scams and the lies of securitization and chain of title auditors and companies like certified forensic loan auditors that are nothing but a scam outfit, you're making a gigantic mistake. Instead, do the right thing for your family and yourself. Get on the phone. Go to the website mortgagefraudexaminers.com. Call them up and ask them for help. You will not be disappointed.
Well, it's sad, Bob, also, too, these Facebook groups, these foreclosure defense Facebook groups are inundated with these scammers and these legal illiterates who come up with all this nonsense, and these poor homeowners buy into it. They're cultish. They have these certain followers that they follow. Well, anyway, just over the weekend, there's a case right now. It's Kessler versus Countrywide Home Loans. And the poor woman, Miss Kessler, has been scammed by this one individual. She's a morbidly obese woman in Florida someplace. She's a convicted thief. She started doing these chain of title audits here a couple of years ago. Another individual by the name of David McCrae. And they've convinced this poor woman the arguments that they gave her are very legitimate arguments. Well, that court case that I just spoke about, which is Richard DeForest and Kathleen DeForest versus Bank of New York Mellon et al., that just came down August the 27th out of the United States District Court in Connecticut, the very same arguments that Kessler's making in her pleadings, this was made in this case, and it was dismissed with prejudice. Can't bring it back. Sorry, guys, you're done. And this poor woman, Ms. Kessler, has bought into this nonsense, and the poor woman has bought into it so much so that I looked at her file. I read her pleadings. They were total nonsense. But she comes on and says that based on the help of this Paris Dubé and this David McCrae, that every one of the defendants that they sued, their motions were dismissed. Well, in actuality, it was all of their motions that were dismissed. And some of them were so ridiculous that they filed one motion to allow this David McCrae, who is a non-attorney, he's another one of these typical crackpots out there, to become her attorney under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is total nonsense. I guarantee you the judge, the magistrate judge of this case already knows these people are crackpots, and she's going to get nailed, but she loves these two people. She thinks these two people are the second coming. This is the problem. These poor homeowners get scammed to the point where they actually become delusional over their cases. It's really a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, because
what
they want to believe.
What you're talking about is a serious problem across the United States, and it's like Lori said, they don't know who or what to believe. All they know is that they don't trust the typical authorities to tell them the truth and to give them the right way. They believe that it's sort of like the sovereign citizen movement. Now, some of the people in the sovereign citizen movement have claimed that they are the sovereigns and that the government is not. And because of this, they don't have to do what the government does, what the government says in any particular respect. They don't have to obey the laws. For example, they don't need to have a driver's license in order to drive on the highway. Well, they buy into these things because the legal community of lawyers refuse to even talk to such fools. They think they're so delusional and so foolish that it's a waste of breath to try to explain the truth to them, that they wouldn't believe them anyway. So what that means is there's this enormous set of citizens out there who distrust government, distrust the legal community, and have no source of information that they can rely on other than the ones who are intentionally calling together meetings just for them to spread nonsense and baloney. In other words, to tell them lies. I ran across a woman who went into foreclosure, and to stave it off, she hired a man who said who actually on her behalf made up a UCC-1 form and got her to go through this redemption process where she became a secured party creditor of her alleged uppercase legal fiction name. And that was so that she could have prior liens on her assets, so that the foreclosing party couldn't take her house. And then when the court ruled against her, he filed and let her sign the documents, liens against the judge for doing this, against the judge's assets. What happened is that is been made into a crime in most of the states, especially in Florida and Texas. That's a felony. And so what he did is get this woman to commit a felony without telling her it was a felony in order for her to defend against foreclosure. That is complete insanity, but it happens. And what she was lucky that she didn't go to prison. I mean, she could have actually been sent to prison, not only lost her house, but been put into prison for several years. So I would say this, that if there are borrowers out there that have been listening to people who have some far-fetched scheme, let me tell you that those far-fetched schemes, including securitization audits, redemption techniques, filing liens against judges, all those are crazy, will get you in trouble and cause you to lose your house. You need to call mortgage fraud examiners or call me at, my number's at mortgageattack.com. I don't charge any money. I'll explain the proper strategy to use to save your home. That is the only way to go. The only way is to avoid all the scammers and come and find a way to prove that you got injured in the loan transaction, that something was done crooked in the loan transaction, and that is your only path for salvation.
Well, Bob, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you're talking about. And what scares me is that people don't do due diligence, and they hear about something usually through someone else, and it's the greatest thing ever, and it's like a bunch of people going in the wrong direction because they're trusting the scammer, and scammers are good at getting people to trust them. And the other issue is for people who want to report them, they don't know necessarily who to report who to. It's you know, you can report the attorney to the Florida Bar or to the County Bar Association, but they're questioning, I think, also, well, who can I go to? And also, they're probably extremely embarrassed, now, about what happened. Now, on that note, we are going to go to a quick commercial break. Again, if you're a caller and you'd like to ask a question, 646-668-8512. Stay with us.
Consumers, do you have bad credit? Can't purchase a house or car? Paying too much in interest on your credit cards and loans? Scammed by credit repair companies? There is hope. You can get back on track and do it the right way. Call Credit Education Consultants today at 813-500-6064. That's 813-500-6064. Or go to crediteducationconsultants.com now and get the help you need. Don't delay. Call today. Mortgage reps and realtor inquiries are also welcomed.
We're back. AM, FM 24/7 radio with our special guest, Bob Hurd, a consumer advocate in Florida. I think the experts that we've had on our radio show from the IRS, from the FBI, and from these different experts in their respective fields, they all basically were in congruence on one point, that the only way to stop these scammers from devastating the public, and in this instance, homeowners, is to educate the public and to expose these scammers. It's the only thing, obviously, that works, and that's what we try to do on a daily basis. Bob, we commend you for your efforts in doing it, and we're sorry that you had to go through what we go through, where we're chastised and called names for making it clear that these people are harming the public. Also, too, there's another guy, and this guy ran for state senate in California, this individual by the name of Ronald O'Donnell. He sells an affidavit and declaration for $1,000, which is laughable. He sells a foreclosure defense book that is even more laughable. Then he tells people that for $1,500 in expenses, he'll come and be an expert in your case. This crackpot would never be ever admitted in a case. Because his lack of knowledge in the foreclosure field is stunning. We looked at just a couple of the videos that he's done. Both of the videos are so laughable. They're not only factually but legally incorrect. One of them is, Bob, as you pointed out, there was a case that came down from the Supreme Court of the United States a few years ago, Jessenowski, dealing with tiller rescission. Well, this nitwit has a video on rescission, and he talks about the Ublansky case. He doesn't even get the name of the case right. He also says in the video that if the bank doesn't respond to you within 20 days, you'll get your house free and clear. That's a lie. Every court in the country has heard that and said it's a lie. We saw another video that he did, and he talks all through the video about the Fair Debt Collection Procedures Act. Well, there's no such thing as a Fair Debt Collection Procedures Act. There is a Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, but through the whole thing, he talks about the Fair Debt Collection Procedures Act, and he's wrong about that as well. He also, Bob, as you pointed out, about these sovereign citizens, he's even a crackpot that believes in that. He filed a lawsuit. He's not an attorney. He filed a lawsuit representing two individuals. One of them must have been a relative because her last name was O'Donnell. And he files this lawsuit as a private attorney general. The court found it laughable. First of all, they said you're not a lawyer. You can't represent anybody. which happens to be an unauthorized practice of law, which is a crime in most states, but certainly is in California. Also, he charges people, it really admits that he charges people $500 to fill out bankruptcy forms. Well, you can't charge more than $150. That's a violation of the law. And we just got, because we have people that report intel to us all the time and different tips and such, and we just got a tip here over the weekend. We haven't vetted it as of yet, but we'll vet it, and if it's true, this guy was convicted of being a thief as well years ago in Pennsylvania. And this guy ran for state senate. So, what are these people in California thinking? But this is the kind of nonsense that's out there. You just have people with these backgrounds that are selling, and they stole at one time, and now they're stealing from homeowners. I mean, it's absolute craziness what's going on out there.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a crying shame. I don't know any way of informing borrowers of the right path to take other than creating a website and explaining it to them. And in other words, in order to reach a whole lot of people and do it at low cost, and creating a website is relatively inexpensive if you know how to do it. But what is it that makes people come and find the website? Well, it's the use of the search engines like Google. And I've found that the traffic to my website, mortgageattack.com, it has become less than it used to be because I don't post as many articles to it. Now, the only way I could keep that website flourishing is to continue to post blog articles to it. But my way of looking at this is I've already said this once. In fact, I've said it several times in several ways. Why continue saying the same thing over and over and over in blog articles? Well, I guess if that's what I have to do to get the Google to rank my website high enough so people can find it, I guess I need to do that. But that is one of the shames about it. This radio program can help people to find the website mortgagefraudexaminers.com and mortgageattack.com, and either way, they're going to get information they can't get anywhere else.
Right, but Bob, also think about people sometimes do need to hear the same thing. Just like advertisers that spend money, you need to hear that ad a certain amount of times before you really pick up on it. So that's why we do this topic a lot, in the hopes that people who are listening are getting bits and pieces of it and slowly putting it together for themselves so they can come to a logical conclusion and not be scammed anymore.
Yep, makes sense to me. Well, I guess I need to just keep writing those blog articles.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. We get calls all the time, and people call us and say, well, Storm, you say this is a scam, you say that's a scam, that's a scam. How do we know you're not a scam? And I said, great question. How you know is you look at the process, and the process, if the process doesn't make sense, then there's an old adage, it's nonsense. If I was to tell someone that if you put water in a pot, put it over an open flame, and it would boil, people understand that process. They understand that works. That's why I tell people, look, when you understand that in the contract you told the bank they could take your house if you failed to make timely payments, which every homeowner agreed to, that the bank could take their home. Once you understand that, and you understand that you breached the contract, and the only way to overcome your breach is to be able to show a problem with that contract, then you understand that process works. Well, the only way to find out what happened in your mortgage transaction, not what happened afterwards, that it was assigned, but what actually happened in your transaction, then you'll understand that that is the only thing that works. So, again, all we can do, Bob, Lori, and the rest of us out there that try exposing this, I mean, the FBI exposes it. The Federal Trade Commission said these audits are scams. The courts have said these people providing these securitization chain of title are charlatans. Their paperwork's empty gimmickry. There's no such thing as a certified forensic loan auditor. Once people hear enough of that, they may finally understand. And here's the sad part. The FDIC went out and analyzed a couple hundred or so mortgage transactions. They found that 83% of the mortgages were problematic and 76% of the appraisals had problems. So when you add those together, what's the chance there's something wrong with your mortgage transaction? Well, there's been approximately 10 million foreclosures over the last decade. That means how many of those homeowners, if they had had their transaction analyzed properly, how many of them would still be in their homes, and the banks would have cried uncle a long time ago. But the problem of it is people like us get drowned out by the scammers. There's thousands of them, thousands of stall attorneys. We're drowned out. So all we can do is what we're doing as hard as we can. That's to expose them. And if the homeowners are smart enough to listen, God bless them. If they're not, they're going to end up losing their home. There's no doubt. I tell people every time. I can guarantee that if you follow these chain of title auditors, securitization auditors, you will lose your home. But you got a 75% chance better of saving it if you have your transaction analyzed. I wish we're the only firm in the country that does what we do. We wish there was others that did what we do, but there's not. But, all of us, we can do is to spread the word. That's why we tell our clients, look, make sure you're out there. Because almost every one of our clients has already had a securitization audit or chain of title audit. They were losing their homes before they came to us. Get out there. Tell people. The more people that are exposing this nonsense, the better it will be for everybody.
Right. And Storm, these people can also join your Facebook page for free. You have the Stop Foreclosures with Strategies That Actually Work. So it's free to join that, and that page has picked up a lot of people lately. So there are more people now. It's a slow turn to figure out what's really working. And, Bob, we got about a minute before we got to close out, so I know you had some closing comments.
Well, just one more question for Storm. Storm, what percentage of your mortgage examinations show that there's appraisal fraud?
We find appraisal fraud on average around the United States about 80% of the time. In some of what we call the foreclosure capitals like Arizona, California, Nevada, Florida, Illinois, New York and such, we find it as high as 90% of the time.
Oh, man, that's terrible. So in order to find that, they can come to you?
Yeah, and
a borrower can come to you if they want to figure out, do they have appraisal fraud, right?
Well, we analyze the whole transaction. We just don't analyze the appraisal. We analyze every aspect from day one or prior to day one all the way up until today to identify problems with that transaction. And we've never done an analysis ever that we didn't find something that the homeowner could use.
Oh, then they need to come to you, don't they?
Well, they don't need to come to us. They can come to, as you, Allied Moving Vans. They'd be more than happy to accommodate them.
Right. Well, guys, I think you did another great show, and Bob Hurt, want to thank you very much for being on with us. Storm for doing another great show. Hopefully people will listen to this or pass this on to someone you know that maybe is in foreclosure that needs some help. And we want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on Fraudsters Radio. Join us again next Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time live. And remember, we do want to hear your stories, and you can contact us through the Fraudsters Radio Facebook page. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again. Enjoy your week.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
AM/FM 247, the best in talk and music all day and every day.